Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You're now tuned into the one and only place where you can get what's needed on your plate along with what's going on in your hood. Candy Lady's gonna keep you up to date with events going on round your way. What's really good? SC by Black locally. Keep them dollars circulating in your own community. It's the SCBBL show. You're now tuned into the SCBBL show. Rock on. Rock on.
What's good, everybody? It is Friday. Welcome to the SCBBL show. It is Fridays with Fathers, episode number 3. And we are here with my brother, Ajs Davis.
What's going on? Thank you, sis. Thank you so much for having me on this. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Like, you are such a well-versed person, and I always enjoy talking to you. I always enjoy hearing and getting your perspectives on something. And so when this opportunity came available, you were at the top of my list to get on the show.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
Awesome. So we can get right into it, AJ. You want to tell people a little bit about yourself, like a little background story of some of the things that you're doing that you're passionate about?
All right. So my name is Ajs Davis. I consider myself a passionate community education advocate, and I emphasize advocate, meaning I advocate for the Black community and Black children, Black families, Black parents, Black culture, and pretty much everything, but especially in education, because education is so vital, and I think it's the cornerstone of pretty much who we are. How we learn, how we think of ourselves is how we approach the world. So I am not a native Charlestonian, although Charleston is my home and has been my home now for the last 20 years. So I'm still waiting on my application to be considered a Charlestonian, a Black Charlestonian. So, hopefully it's coming in the mail. But in the meantime, I love my people. I love the culture here. I love the historic connections. Many people know me as the person that likes to bring up the issues as it relates to education, as it relates to community. And I also try to make sure that people also see me as a person who's willing to share, because it's not about what I know, it's about what we know.
Right.
And it does me no good to stand up and be this repository of information if that information doesn't get disseminated out into the community. So that's the thing that I really pride myself on, is being a resource for others, because there were plenty of people who poured into me, and I just try to, like the phrase, pay it forward. I try to make sure that our kids, our parents, and our community get what we deserve.
So I peeped your shirt a little bit. It says Blackity. I thought so, Blackity Black, and I'm Black. Y'all.
Always.
Love it.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of like already pivoted into like the education. So let's talk about that as a father, from a father's perspective. And you sent a picture in, and it showed your connection to your nephews as well. So when you think of education and you think about sharing that, with your future generations, what are some of the things that you are planting into them when it comes to education?
The simplest thing is confidence in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
For Black children, Black males or Black females, both of them, our kids need to know and feel like they can accomplish whatever it is they put their hearts and minds to. And as a father, as a Black man, I try to make sure that I am that voice of encouragement, so that my nephews know that there's nothing they can't do. And I also try to be a resource for them where they can share how they feel, share how they view the world, and also I can help them explore things that maybe they want to explore but are not sure about. So education is as I said at the top of the show, it's key. It's
Right.
vital.
Yeah. And then so when it comes down to like values, you know, like what are some of the values when you think of like just an individual child, your younger self, some things that you would have told yourself, you know, when you were growing up that you know now, when you think of things like that, what are some of the things that you're trying to instill into them, like their value system?
Value honesty, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
We sometimes, you know, people always like to use, especially our folks, we like to say, keep it real, keep it 100. We don't always necessarily live by that though.
That's
because
right.
you know, we want truth in doses. We want honesty in doses. But you know, one of the things that I definitely want them to understand is to value honesty. Have that as a value, meaning be prepared to hear the truth and speak it and live it. And that can be challenging, but understand there's a lesson in that because it's important. That's how we grow. Another value is have a value in facing adversity. One thing that I hear a lot of people talk about when they talk about the younger generations, people like to say, oh, you know, these kids aren't tough enough. These kids, and I kind of disagree with that. I think every adult group always thinks that we came up a certain way. So now that we're adults, we talk to kids and we're like, oh yeah, you know, like how we used to laugh at adults. I walked to school 6 miles in the snow.
Yeah.
In South Carolina, it didn't even snow like that. But all right, whatever. So we tend to discount the experiences of a lot of kids.
Right.
When in reality, there are a lot of children that face things that some adults couldn't even imagine. And working in the school system, I see it. I know. So, you know, but I also want them to understand that in a lot of cases, that adversity is a teaching tool.
Yeah.
It's something that will carry them through life. And, you know, sometimes, again, I know it can be difficult when you're going through it, but the key is to go through it. So that on the other side, you can look back and have an appreciation of that. And so that the next thing that you may face that may be similar, you will now be equipped to know how to deal with that.
Definitely. That's good. So, brother, I don't even know. Are you married?
No, I am divorced.
Okay, so that's even not better, but that gives us like a different perspective than the two guests that I've had so far. My father still married. One of the brothers that I talked to last week, he's married. So given your experience and going through that divorce, what are some of the things that you could tell another brother that could possibly pivot from the divorce or pivot from getting into a situation that may lead to divorce? Just your experience. What can you share from going through that?
So let me say that my ex-wife and the mother of our son is a beautiful sister and the best co-parent I could probably ask for. She is, without a doubt, the epitome of a mother who is willing to do any and everything for her son.
Awesome.
And so it honestly was a situation where, you know, there were some things that just led to it not being the best fit for the both of us. But I also think if I could give advice to a young man, not just about how to avoid the divorce, I think it's how you choose your mate.
Yeah.
I think that's where you start.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advice out there on how to get a man, how to keep a man, how to get a woman, how to keep a woman, all of that. I tend to stay away from those conversations, and only because it's you am I even having this one.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
But I think for any young brother that's thinking about getting married or thinking about becoming serious with a sister, the first thing I would say to him is know yourself.
Yes.
Know yourself. Know who you are. Know what you are. Know how you are.
Mm-hmm.
Live life where you can understand how you navigate the world before you attempt to go out and become the head of a marriage or a house.
Right.
You have to know how you run a house first. And I know in the Black community, we have our own traditions, our cultural norms that vary. But for young men, the first thing I would say is just know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Understand who you are and be honest in that understanding. And then when you're out here looking and entertaining, developing a relationship with a woman, understand what a woman is and is not.
Mm.
A woman is not your property. Okay.
Own it.
She is not there to just accept your flaws and your faults and then your criticisms, without you in return giving her something. Understand that a woman is not supposed to love you unconditionally just because that's what you think she's supposed to do. I've never understood that. If you keep giving me your ass to kiss, I'm not going to do that. So that's kind of what she's not. What she is her own person.
Mm-hmm.
She has her own personality. She has her own perspective, which is hard for a lot of men to understand. I know that's not a popular sentiment.
Yep.
She has her own hopes and dreams, and you coming into contact with her should not stop any of those.
Yeah.
So, my advice is simple. Make sure that you are going into a relationship with a woman for the right reasons. Sometimes you have to leave some of the things that you've been taught.
Yep.
And forge your own path when it comes down to how you approach not so much just marriage, but just how you approach love, how you approach a relationship. So, yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. That is good. Like, hearing that's all the thoughts that I had in my head as a woman. Like, you would want a brother that you got with to understand those things. So, or your mate in general to understand who you are, and
Right.
you want to be able to bring it to the table and understand each other and accept each other. Because when somebody can accept you fully, just as you are, that's like a beautiful thing. We can grow together when you can love my perfections, air quotes, and imperfections. So yeah, that's good.
That reminds me, there's a quote that I heard some years ago, even when I think I might have heard it before I got married.
Mm-hmm.
It said, love is not loving the perfect person. It's being able to love an imperfect person perfectly.
Yes.
So I think that especially in the Black community, there's so much residual because we still have these views as to what a relationship is, and relationships are such a big part of how we measure worth and whatnot in the Black community, especially for Black women, and Black men to an extent, but with Black women, it's like, oh, well, you are you married yet? Do you have a husband? You gotta get you a husband, and I'm of a different train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also of the belief that, Black love is a beautiful thing in whatever form it takes.
Yep.
And that if we learn how to embrace Black love and embrace self-love,
yeah,
when the two are able to meet it, that's where the magic happens.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say. That's magic.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that is good. I don't know if you're like a person that's like, okay, I already experienced the marriage, not happening again, or possibly might happen again. So in a perfect world, what does that family dynamic look like? You know, like you kind of touched on it a little bit where you're saying that traditionally a lot of us have a certain way of thinking about relationships, and it stems from our ancestors, it stems from the church community, it stems from just like you need to have kids before you're a certain age, society, you know, like all of the things that stems and has a hand in how we view the family dynamic. But how does AJ view the family dynamic?
I grew up under the same things you talked about, growing up in rural South Carolina, or the country, as people like to say. And I saw, mothers, fathers, folks went to church, the same nuclear family dynamic. That's what was on the surface.
Yeah.
But then as I grew up and began to be able to understand things, I was like, oh, okay, and for me, the family dynamic looks like everyone respects everyone else in their particular role. People embrace roles that may be non-traditional. The greater goal is to create an environment where there's love, respect, care, support for everybody. One thing about me and my ex-wife, we have a very, I guess you would call it non-traditional relationship now that we've been divorced. We've been divorced now, 13 years. So we've been divorced almost as long as our son has been alive. But in that time frame, have we had rough patches? Absolutely.
Right.
I think the nature of being human beings. But we both come back to this point of we have this beautiful child who is only going to see the world through not only his eyes, but what we are able to show him.
Right.
And although, his mom and his father may not be together physically in that regard, they're going to be there together emotionally and co-parent. I know that she's been involved in other relationships, and as have I, but we both had mutual respect for each other. And it's never been one of those things where I've been like, yeah, don't bring another man around my son. I've given her enough respect to know that I can't criticize her taste in men because I'm her child's father. So
right.
How can I just now all of a sudden mistrust her taste in men, but she gave me a whole son. So
that is awesome. I love that perspective. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so we have conversations. I know she's been dating another dude for a while now, and I've met him, and we're cool. And so she's seen a few of the people that I've dated. So we never let that get in the way of our responsibilities as parents. And whatever it looks like later on, if she decides to get married or I decide to get married, the dynamic of us as parents, to me, is already set. It's going to be, I'm my son's father, she's his mother. That's how it is. I don't know if we'll have kids, if it may be a blended family. Again, I come from an environment where I know what love is in a family unit. So that's not something that I foresee being an issue for me. I don't really see it being an issue for her. And, that's, to me, that's what being a mature adult is about.
Man, you better teach up in here. So now that we've learned about you, learned about your perspectives, I think that I want to just touch on something that you're very passionate about, which is you can be seen to many as a community father because you fight for education, you fight for what's best for other people's children, that, you have your son, but the work that you do touches the lives of many people. So Let's talk about, what you do in that regard when it comes down to your organization.
So I grew up where they say the village. I grew up where the village looked a little bit different. It probably looked how it would have looked for you and many of us who are of a certain age.
Yeah.
And so I kind of take that mindset when it comes down to advocating for kids. Basically, I want kids to have the opportunities that I had and did not have.
Right.
I know when we're dealing with systems, the school system, the educational system, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times that's where, as Black people, our first exposure to the harsh reality of racism in America and the idea of us being second class, that's where that unfortunately is taught.
Yeah.
That's where that unfortunately is the foundation for that belief and value system is put in place through our experiences with education, public or private. Because I have people and friends who have gone to private school for their entire lives, and they have horror stories too. So it's not like there's one system versus another that's better. It's all of it. So my approach is that I believe in one, making sure that Black kids understand their value and understand that they do not need to feel inferior to anyone.
Right.
That's number one. Another is to make sure that Black parents understand and feel value as well. There's something that oftentimes gets said, especially in educational circles, where people will say, well, it's about the kids. Nah, it's about the families.
Right.
And it's that separation that takes place. Like, kids can drive themselves to school in the morning. Kids can get up and make sure, even though some kids may do that at later points, but no, it's about the family.
Yeah.
You can't, in my opinion, and Black people need to stop accepting this. You can't say it's just about the kids without recognizing that kids are a part of a family.
Yeah.
So my goal is to reconnect the family, because we can't say, well, it's about the kids, and we have the kids and we're failing the kids, but then we want to blame the parents and say, well, if parents did this. No, it's about the kids then. If you say it's about the kids, then you have the kids during the day and you're teaching them and your methods are effective and whatnot, then measure yourself on that. If you recognize that you also need the parents, then you need to stop saying it's just about the kids and respect the fact that in the case of Black kids and Black families, you have to do things differently. And what I have found is it's not just Black kids or Black families, everybody else. They never try to separate the family unit. Other folks will not let them.
Right.
Families, white parents will stay in schools. They will advocate even if they dead ass wrong. They will advocate for their kids. They will do everything in their power to uplift their kids, as they should. But it's only when we start talking about Black kids and Black families that we suddenly use a deficit narrative. We suddenly use a, antagonistic narrative regarding parents and everything like that. And listen, don't get me wrong, I'm a realist. Would I like to see more of our parents involved with our kids? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would be lying if I didn't say that I don't understand why the situation is the way it is with a lot of our parents, because they were those kids who were abandoned and not supported in school either.
Right.
You can't do what you don't know.
Yeah. What does that even look like?
Right. Right.
Question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to be that person that if I'm in a room and I'm talking and people are talking about education and Black kids, I don't give a damn if I'm in a room full of PhDs, or the folks on the block. I'm making sure people understand that Black kids, Black parents, Black families matter. Period.
Yeah.
That's it.
With your organization, you're probably going to help show parents, like, when it comes down to the school system, these are the areas where you really need to be involved. These are the topics that you really need to keep at the forefront of your mind. And if you want to, if there's like some burning things that you already have boiled up that you can just spit off the top of your head of areas where we could possibly have more impact, but you're not really seeing us do it. And it's possibly because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of time, lack of skills, or whatever it is. if there's anything that's burning on your mind, share some of those things that you could with us.
So education has changed since we've been in school.
Yes.
And in that change, there's a lot more technical things. And I'm pretty sure there were technical things that we didn't see when we were in school too, because we had teachers who were dedicated and who made sure they were prepared to teach us.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about education right now that I want to share, and I try to share with Black parents, is understanding the basics of what your role in your child's education is.
Right.
What I have seen from a lot of parents and in a lot of communities is that Black parents are oftentimes, in my opinion, made to feel like they're inadequate for their own children.
Yep.
Because you have schools that have all of these programs and organizations and groups coming in, and they're doing things with our kids. And, on the surface, we're like, oh, well, our kids are getting exposure to all these different things. But in a lot of cases, schools, whether directly or indirectly, oftentimes make parents inadequate in helping children progress. So what I try to tell parents is, I don't give a damn how many organizations and programs is in a school and they help your child. You still have a major role.
Yep.
If it's as simple as you showing up and sitting and watching and asking questions, do that. Mm-hmm. Don't feel as though you can't do that. And if it's something that's going on that you may not understand or even agree with, speak up.
Right.
The other piece, never assume that somebody else is going to look out for your kids just because they tell you.
You better say so.
Because that's probably the reason why I go so hard in education. I have seen so many people talk about test scores and things like that as it relates to Black kids and our achievement gap, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody ever talks about, well, who's teaching these kids, one?
Yeah.
How many programs have been put in place to quote unquote help these kids, two? And three, who was measuring their effectiveness?
Wow.
So you're going to sit and talk about Black kids not being able to learn in comparison to their white counterparts. And I've seen the statistics and the reports and the tests all to the point where I'm like, so what? Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is, what happens in the classroom? Mm-hmm. How are we determining whether or not our kids are learning or just being pushed through? And I think for me, my organization, we're here to educate parents and guardians first.
Yeah.
So that they can know what to look for. If I ask the average parent, well, what does MAP test scores measure? Could they tell me? Then what does SC Ready measure? SC Pass measure? What is EOCs? So a lot of this stuff gets thrown at us and we don't even understand what it is, how it ties in. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is how systems want it to be. Yeah. So the more confusing, the easier it is to
get over, change.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
And that's the crazy part. That's not even just in education. That's like in any county system or any system in general. They will mix that thing up so bad, and it'll have you questioning, did I do everything I was supposed to do? Like, did I miss something? I thought I read the instructions, and it's just like, why do we make it, harder than it has to be?
If you make it difficult, if you are trying to subjugate and make a group of people dependent on you, because you're the one that creates the rules and the environment, you do that so that that group of people will always feel beholden to you.
Yeah.
And that they will view you as the authority and you as the individual that will help them progress. It's just like how in America, Black people have always been made to feel as though our progress is predicated upon whether or not white people will let us move forward.
Yeah. I'm glad you said individual too, because a lot of these seats are individuals. It's not even like a a true office. It's more like one individual is behind the curtain pulling all the strings.
Yeah. and that's it. You know, with our organization, another thing that I did, I watched in 2018, there was a organization that came into existence called the Charleston Coalition for Kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched how they basically steamrolled through local elections for school board, pretty much coming out of nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I met with the, I later met with the founder, executive director, a gentleman by the name of Josh Bell, and just having conversations with him and asking certain questions like, so what is it that you know, what makes y'all the authority? Why, you know, and it was always this, you know, we got to improve education. And I'm sitting here like, Black people have been trying to improve education for decades,
right?
Centuries even, for us.
Yep.
So what makes you, a white man who is funded by white money,
Mm-hmm.
and authority, and able to tell me, who's been out here on the front lines in my own school system,
yep,
in the community, what makes you the authority? What makes the people who support you any more of an authority on what it's going to take to improve education than people like me?
right?
And I can't get an answer.
Yeah, it's just coming out of a different mouth.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. And so I decided, you know what? I went to college, I got my master's, I understand organizational development. And I understand that a lot of what happens with Black people in general is we get out organized.
Yes.
We get out strategized.
Yes.
And we get out funded when it comes down to things we need to do. So I said the first thing I can do, at least, is create the structure and the organization that we can use to fight this. And my colleague, Eric Jackson, who's also a father, wonderful father, shout out to him.
Awesome.
He and I said, you know what, this is something that we needed to do, because all too often, especially with Black men, the narrative is we don't want to be involved. We're not involved. Fathers don't matter. Black fathers don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that not only is not true, but the other side is, in my work in education, my work in youth development, there were so many Black mothers, Black women who were out here burning the candle at both ends, wanting and sacrificing so much to help their kids. And they were being misled about what was really happening and what really helped support their kids and their growth. And I said, you know what? I need to create an umbrella for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, I can't be mad at another group because they organized and they did their thing. I can create that umbrella, create that village for us, because I've had the conversations with those other folks. I've sat in the rooms with those other people, those other groups. And me sitting in that room lets me know that they don't have our best interests at heart.
Right.
They don't have a true desire to see us in power.
Mm-hmm.
They will say they do, but what they want is to replicate things they've seen in other places that they think should work for us.
Yeah.
They're not even looking at, and the funny thing about it is, especially here, you notice in the business community, everybody wants to talk about, well, you know, local first, this, that, and the third, local businesses. But when it comes to education, though, we want to go to other states and find things that other people are doing instead of saying, no, we're going to work in the local environment, in the local community, with local families, local teachers, and we're going to come up with local solutions to improve education, especially for Black kids. And we're going to have local Black voices that are not only at the table being heard, but we're going to use local Black people to be the ones to bring about the change.
Yeah.
It's just ironic.
Mm-hmm. And strategic, like you said before. It's a strategy that they use, and it's time for us to, like me, you were talking about before we went live, it's just like, what is the strategy? Like, who are the right key players or who already have the strategy? And then how do we communicate that out, to our communities on here's some of the things that you should be aware of. Here's where you find this information. Here's, what you need to be doing. Because when this election comes up, it's not about the, national stuff that's going on out there. It's about what are we doing in South Carolina? Like South Carolina is so far behind on so many things. What are we doing? What are we holding ourselves accountable for? So things like that is like stuff that we really need to be working on. So I appreciate all the work that you're putting in, because I, for one, will be depending on some of your expertise in the educational arena. My children are homeschooled, but the community school system just needs to be improved.
And let me say this to parents like yourself and others who are embracing homeschooling. My son has gone through that. We're here for that. The mission of Low Country Black Parents is to embrace all parents, all educational methodologies.
Yes.
Whether a child's homeschooled, whether a child is in public school, charter, private, the goal is to make parents feel supported.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is, as you said, help them understand strategies that can lead to overall success. And then number three, change the narrative, change the narrative that Black students are inherently inferior and must be saved by white saviors and organizations and well-meaning individuals, when we know that's not the case.
Exactly. Especially like some of the labels that they like to put on our sons. What we know,
and our daughters. Listen, let me tell you, it's at the point where all of our kids, male or female, all of our kids are being failed by this system, because a lot of times we don't even understand our power in that system. There are people who will try to convince Black people that, the public education system is not working for us. And that sounds good until you realize, taking a school district like Charleston County, well, why are all the majority Black schools supposedly failing, but I can drive across the Ravenel Bridge and go into Mount Pleasant, where you have a large percentage of majority white schools with some Black students in it, and they're doing fine. What's the difference? They're all public schools.
Yep.
But what is the difference in what's happening over there in those public schools and what's happening across the bridge in downtown Charleston, what's happening in West Ashley, what's happening in North Charleston? They're public schools as well. So what's different? And so when you start helping people understand that it's about the focus and influence that goes into those schools.
Yes.
One of the key things that I say to people, that I've said this for years, you can oftentimes tell the quote unquote good schools versus the not so good. And we got to change that narrative too.
Yeah.
By the level of parental involvement.
Wow.
That, not test scores, not any of these other things. And we're talking about students who feel supported, the school, the staff, the teachers, when they feel as though they are supported and appreciated. And that comes from the communities that pour into those schools.
Yeah.
My goal is to help, through Low Country Black Parents, help parents understand that is how we change education for our kids.
Wow. I'm glad you said that, because that's going to be a game changer. Helping people to understand, like, it could be 10 minutes. It could be sending lunch to the school. It could be it could just be small things that we build on top of that just keeps, that we're standing in solidarity in our community. We're standing in the gap for other parents. Whatever it is, like, understand. I'm excited about your organization, and just to see some of the things that comes out of it. Like, what can we be doing? Some tips, some, things that we could just be improving on. And it might be just small things that people don't even think of, because like I said earlier, sometimes we replicate what we see. It's not that we're intentionally dropping the ball. It's just that maybe I never thought about that before. But now that you bring attention, Okay.
You know, we have a saying, you know, fake it till you make it. And
Yeah.
sometimes we fake it until we think we make it.
Yeah.
What Low Country Black parents, my vision is that it not only helps parents understand their worth, it creates a safe space for Black parents. Because Black people, we are getting beat down in almost every facet of life.
Yeah.
Education is no different.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be where a mom, a grandmother, aunt, uncle, a father can say, hey, man, you know, I'm trying to help my child. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or I don't understand this. And we can say, no problem. We got you.
Yeah.
Here's the resources. And here's some support for you. Because another thing that oftentimes that has become undervalued and underappreciated is the support of other Black people.
Yeah.
We are made to feel as though we must compete against one another.
Right.
And we're made to feel as though that, you know, we cannot support the upliftment of anybody else unless we're of a certain stature. And that's where everything has gone wrong. It's strength in numbers. We are attempting to rebuild that village.
Yes.
That's the goal.
That is amazing. So AJ, is there anything else you can think of that I didn't bring up that you would want to share with a young brother or even any brother who may just kind of be lost, you know, not sure how to balance life and the responsibilities that come with it, with adulting? If there's anything you want to share, feel free to do that now.
So it's funny. I'm 44 years old, and for most of my adult life, definitely my later teen years, I lost my father. My father suffered 5 massive strokes when I was 12 years old. The last time I heard my father say a complete sentence was when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
He died 5 years later. I was 17, turning 8. I was 10 days away from turning 18. So I grew up with that hole. I sought out other men, you know, male father figures, and that was something that really bothered me. And I carry that. So, you know, for younger brothers, one of the things, and I'm looking at myself as that.
Mm-hmm.
For younger brothers, it's okay to be vulnerable. Okay. Society, even Black society, tries to paint this picture that we got to be hard, we got to be this, that, and the third. We carry a lot of trauma that sometimes we don't know how to handle.
Right.
So first and foremost, I would say to young brothers, give yourself grace. Give yourself the ability to say you can't deal with certain things and you need help.
Yeah.
Don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you don't have to feel as though you have to be Superman in the face of the world.
Yeah.
Because that's the quickest way to the grave. You know what I'm saying? Number 2, you don't have to be in competition with other Black men, even though society pits you against it. One thing I have learned, and this was one of the hardest lessons, 20 years ago when I came to Charleston, I was young, hungry, you know, wanting to go out and get under the tutelage of other Black men who I saw as leaders in the community. And I realized very quickly they weren't interested in that.
Wow.
And that's one of the things we don't like to discuss in the Black community. You know, we put our people on pedestals, but it's a very serious issue when it comes down to Black men. And for a lot of younger Black men, especially ones that may not have had a strong male, consistent male figure in their lives, yeah, you know, we deal with that. It affects us whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And it didn't just start with this generation.
Right.
There are grown men who I know who are in their 60s who will say, yeah, I didn't have a father. So this narrative that somehow or another Black people are inferior because we don't have whole families, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
They never, when they brought our ancestors over here shackled in the bowels of ships, they weren't trying to create nuclear families. They were trying to create more profits. So for young Black men, it's a challenge out here trying to navigate what it is, 1, to be Black, what it is, 2, to be a Black male, and 3, what are the expectations for all of that? So I would say, make sure you again understand yourself,
Yeah.
and then seek out a support system. Other brothers, I can't say it enough. If I had to do it all over again, I would have made more male friends. I'm grateful that now in my older years, middle age, I can say that there are brothers who I can look at and be like, I can talk to, and we can have real conversations. You know what I'm saying? Like, Uni, Cat Was, my boy Eric, Sam Bellamy, Mirjan, all of those are black men who are black men. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And I look at them and they're raising their families and whatnot, but I can also have conversations with them.
Right.
And I encourage young brothers to understand you don't have to be a mercenary. You don't have to go through this alone.
Yes.
And view life as something worth living. You're gonna make mistakes. We all do. And don't let anybody, adult or otherwise, tell you that you got to be this perfect person and do everything right. And because nobody else did that.
Nope.
Nobody,
Nope.
So yeah, that's what I would tell a young man. And I gotta say this because this is important,
Mm-hmm.
especially as it relates to black people. One thing I do want to tell our young brothers is this. In addition to everything I just said, understand that black women are not your enemy.
No.
That black women are not out here to bring you down, to set you back or any of that, because that's not how it's ever been. Understand that we are all fighting the same battle, just in different ways.
Yeah.
And that the love of a black woman is one of the greatest gifts as a black man you can ever receive.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to treat it as such. And I say that because I see a lot of young brothers, I don't think they understand how to prepare themselves for love and relationships and all of that. Trust me, I didn't get that shit right at all. So um, I definitely yeah, I can sit there and be like, yep, this is what I got wrong.
Mhm.
Don't do this. Don't do that. Yeah, because yeah.
Wow. Did I cut you off?
No. I was just saying, yeah, because again, I look at it like this. My father, I never got the dad talk. I never got the ability to have my father see me graduate high school, go off, get married, have kids. None of that. And I've always felt there's a hole in me for that. But
Mhm.
I also know that as a black man, having a strong black mentor
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
Having a network of other brothers that you can talk to just to make sure you are sane
Yes.
matters.
Sanity checks. I depend on sanity checks.
Yeah, and I envy a lot of sisters for that. And I've told a lot of the sisters that have been in my life this. I said, I know it's not perfect with y'all either. Trust me, I understand that. But a lot of times when it comes down to that holistic sisterhood, sisters have a better leg up in a lot of cases than the brothers do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're jockeying to be, I'm gonna be the man, I don't need nobody, can't nobody tell me nothing. I'm
Mhm.
like, no, I need you to check me. If
Yeah.
I'm out of line, if I'm out of pocket, check me.
Yes.
Let me know that I'm running around here, and especially as you get older, because as you get older, mortality starts to mean something differently. When you're young, you are invincible. You
Yeah.
go out here and I'm gonna do everything I want. I'm gonna drink 24 hours a day. I'm gonna smoke forever. I'm
Yep.
gonna get 2 hours of sleep a night, and I'm gonna be good.
Exactly. I only
And,
needed to
yeah, and life hits you, and you wake up one morning, you're like, damn, I'm moving a little bit slower.
Mhm.
Like where that ache came from. I can't see as much, and then you realize, oh, damn, I'm older now,
Yep.
and so you start taking inventory. And
Mhm.
sometimes we don't want to do that. And we then start thinking about all the things that we could have, would have, should have did. So yeah, my words, my gifts to young brothers is I gotta think positive for us. We gonna make it.
Yes.
Not only are we gonna make it, we have to make sure our sisters and our families and our communities make it as well. Don't let your pursuit of individual goals take you away from your collective impact.
Mm.
And unfortunately, we got too many people that's in our ears telling us how we should do things when everybody's giving us advice that they don't take.
Mm.
And so we have to understand, when we look at other communities, when we look at the white community, they would have you think, oh, it's rugged individualism, but they've created a system where they benefit collectively.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the Asian community, the Jewish community. We love talking about everybody else's communities.
Yeah.
But we don't think or act like a community.
Nope.
Act as individuals, but we expect community benefit.
You better say so.
So, that's and especially with Black, because males are always expected to be the dominant species, group, whatever, and they're expected to be the ones to go out and get. And that's fine if you want to believe that, but then make sure when you go out and get, you get, and it benefits
right.
your units, your families, your community. Do that.
Mm-hmm.
White men will go out and they get, but they also have the benefit of making sure that their communities, their family units are good.
Yes.
They built a system to benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to operate in their system to benefit us.
Not working.
It's not working.
Nope.
That means that we have to realize we have to create our systems within a system.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like you work in technology, work with computers, you understand there's systems within systems.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have to understand we're trying to operate within a system that's not set up for us to get the outcomes we want. So then we have to look at that system as men and say we need to do differently. We can't go out here and operate against our own best interests. As men, and then expect to get the results we see other people get.
Wow. So,
yeah.
See, I always love talking to you, man.
Yeah, man. As I love to tell people, especially when I talk on social media, as I get older, I seek wisdom. I seek to get wiser. I want to be able to say that when my time comes, and we all don't know when that's going to be, that there was something different about the world that I contributed to.
Yeah.
There's something different about the space and the people that I've come in contact with, the things that I've touched, all of that. My goal is to make sure that I have contributed to planting seeds that other people can come and sow and benefit other folks.
Wow. My mama must have just been in your head just now. Hey, Ma. She says, how do we develop different organizations to help support all that's being said tonight with funding?
So I'm going to say this, and this is something that is oftentimes a struggle for Black people. Mm-hmm. We have a funding mechanism that unfortunately has been tied in one direction, the Black church. Yeah. Black church for centuries now has been one of the only organizations consistently, bar none, that has been able to collect funds with relative ease. All right. So I would say that it's going to take Black people creating these organizations and then Black people who believe in those organizations to support them.
Yeah.
We have to now, that's another area that we as Black people don't really embrace, and that's Black philanthropy that benefits Black organizations. We'll give to United Way, we'll give to the Salvation Army, we'll give to Goodwill, and that's fine, but that does not necessarily equate to us. Black organizations need Black money the most.
Yes.
Because oftentimes are not able to get it from white benefactors, not without a lot of red tape and jumping through hoops.
You just gave me an idea.
Yeah. So the key is we have to create our own funding mechanisms. With my organization, I created it as a membership organization, which means there's an annual membership fee that we will then use to at least have some type of operating capital while we go seek other sources of funding.
Yeah.
Then Black people have to be committed to becoming donors and funders to other Black organizations. You
Yep.
know, we can diversify the money we get, but if we're not able to even get money from the people who look like us, who say they support us, that's going to be a hard sell.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
man.
I answered the question.
Yeah. You just got my wheels turning, so I'm over here taking notes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Mama said she loves what you said about not being in competition. But another thing to that is that most churches are in competition. So
So there's a spirit of competition that's been implanted in Black people from the time we were brought here as property. We have had to compete for our existence. On plantations, there's stories and narratives where, and we all talk about it. We talk about the plantation structure and mentality, where you had the Blacks who were in the house, the Blacks who were in the field, you know, the lighter skinned Blacks, the darker skinned Blacks. So a spirit of competition has always been placed in us because we've never been allowed or never been trained to think collectively for our collective benefit. When
yeah,
you make resources scarce, then automatically we're going to try to compete because we know, well, we need this much to eat. Well, this other group is, well, we need that much to eat. Instead of us saying, well, can we work together to make sure we all eat?
wow, that's deep.
And that's unfortunately not what's promoted in our community.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Yeah,
have this pseudo unity.
yeah. Me and you will be talking more because I'm just over here thinking now that you've been saying some of that stuff tonight, like strategies around how can we get what we need to get done, and how can you paint the picture so that people know that it's not just for this area over here to eat, but it's for all of us. Because the way I think about everything in life is that once you figure out the system, you can easily replicate it. But the hardest part is figuring out, like, making that system work for you so that you can show somebody else that if you study the DMV book, you can go in there and get your permit.
Let me say this. Another part that I stayed away from, but is very much so a part of everything. Black people have to build our political capacity. One of the disservices we do to ourselves is we don't engage politically enough with the goal of empowering Black communities.
Yep.
We have to understand that in order to get resources, in order to provide protections, in order to help Black people achieve what we say we want, we have to be in not just at the table, we have to be making decisions at that table.
Yes.
You can't just go into a voting booth and click a button and say we're voting for that person. We have to make sure that the right person is there, and after they get elected, we have to make sure that we're still doing our part. And see, that's the problem, because just like everything else, we've been misinformed and not told how it works. We think politics is having a Black person or having a person who looks like us in a position. Well, we have to understand, especially in local politics, we got to understand how political divisions are made up. We get too caught up in Republican, Democrat, and not even understanding why that is, instead of saying, what is the position and how does that position apply?
Yes.
School board. You want to make sure your kids get the quality education, have the right people on the school board. Your neighborhood is in danger of gentrification and whatnot. Who do you have on city council, on county council? Who's representing you at the state house? Do you have a relationship with them? Do they make themselves available to you? You understand how municipal budgets are developed. You understand the functions of these committees that oftentimes oversee who gets what resources. We have to re-educate ourselves, because what I'm talking about doesn't just apply to the American political system. How resources are governed applies to every physical location on the planet. You have to understand how politics works. The definition of politics is how the body chooses to govern resources and allocations of resources. That's what politics is. So that's something that we as Black people, when we start looking at solutions, that's one of the solutions that we really need to embrace.
Well, I just got chills just now, so I knew you're preaching.
Yeah.
Hey, Damien. Mr. Owens in the house.
All right. What's going on, D?
Mom says she's guilty. She hates politics and she knows that she needs to get more involved. And she agrees on working together, knowing that we need to form a group of young men like yourself to break these barriers. So
tell your mom I appreciate that, and tell her it was her generation that kind of started this blueprint for us. But unfortunately, what happens is the white power structure figures out ways to slow down or even stop momentum.
Yeah.
If you think about it, in the 1960s, little over the middle of the 20th century, Black people finally got the unfettered right to vote. All right. So think about that. We were supposedly freed in the 1860s. It wasn't until the 1960s, 100 years later, that we got the unfettered right to vote.
Right.
Even though the Constitution said we should, but that's where poll taxes and Jim Crow laws and all these legal loopholes got put in place. So 68, 69, I forget the exact years when we got, the Voting Rights Act was signed in. So you go into the 70s, my decade, where Black people are now not only able to vote, you see Black people starting to run for office, for political representation. We were already 150, almost 200 years behind politically.
Right.
Even though after Reconstruction, yes, we had some Blacks who were in office, but they were still a minority.
Yeah.
We had Black cities and towns where we were thriving that were destroyed by the white power structure. Not just Tulsa. Mitchellville, South Carolina. People need to look that up.
What is it called?
Mitchellville, South Carolina. Look up that city, that town, and you will be surprised at where it is and what happened to it.
Wow.
But it's because we have not had a consistent political presence, and we have not understood the power of political capacity. We get caught up because the white power structure makes it that way, where we start in this competition phase again of Republican versus Democrat. Oh, well, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative. No, we Black first.
Yep.
Our birth certificate, our birthright is Black, African American, whatever you want to call it. And we have to operate in what's beneficial to that. Where are the resources for that? Your party affiliation, if it doesn't lead to a benefit for you and your people, not just you as an individual, but you and your people, then you need to re-examine it. Totally. So when Black people talk about we don't have money for schools, why don't we have money for businesses? The question that I always ask in return is, well, who's in place to make sure we get that? Who's sitting there saying specifically, Black businesses need this?
Yeah.
There are processes that were established. Who established those processes? Who sat there and made sure? Right now, we got elections this year, local elections. Every state house rep is up. We got congressional reps, presidential. Let me tell you something. You need to start looking at those people running. There's an individual, I'm going to call her name, Crystal Matthews.
Yep.
That sister is one of the most dynamic representatives that this area has had in a long time. Why? Because she is your non-traditional politician. She doesn't go up there to try to play partisan politics. She doesn't go up there trying to be apologetic for being who she is. She goes up there with the intention of representing her constituency and doing what's necessary to make it happen.
Yeah.
All right. And she fights hard.
Yeah.
All right. We need to make sure we're supporting people like her. All right. We got J.A. Moore up there, another young brother who I know who's back from my way. He's up there fighting. All right. We sometimes as Black people, If we don't see the immediate results, we immediately turn on those people and say, "Oh, they ain't fighting for
They
us."
ain't doing nothing.
But we don't understand what the fight actually is.
Yeah.
All right. We got people who we need to support, and that support needs to be more than just us saying we support.
Yeah.
Fundraising, campaign support, canvassing, all of that.
Yeah.
We got local politicians, Marvin Pendarvis, Mike Brown. We got younger people. It's easy to criticize Black politicians, but we oftentimes don't put forth the support for them as well.
Definitely.
Now, we do have some folks that might need to step aside. I'm not even going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
But as a collective, as Black people, we've got to start becoming more educated on how politics work for us.
I agree 100%. We just had Ralph Perlow on the show. He's running for District 7 for the board.
Okay.
And then we have LaTory Lloyd Walker, who's running for town council here in Moncks Corner.
Awesome.
And I looked up like every town council, and you could barely find any of us on those councils.
Right.
So
and that's why, and I gotta say this, that's why when we look at the state of Black people, when we talk about gentrification, we talk about the lack of economic investment. Mm-hmm. How can we have that when we're not the ones at the table making those decisions?
Yep, and nobody's speaking. Nobody can know your story better than you can. They can think that they know, or they can think that they're putting things in place that's equal for everyone. But if that was never their experience, never their story, they don't know. And nobody's going to worry about you if you're not at the table. Like out of sight, out of mind, basically, is what it becomes.
And let me tell you what the greatest fear is, and this is what I've learned politically. Young, Black, intelligent politicians, people as politicians, that is the greatest fear that the white power structure has. Mm-hmm. They hate that. Mm-hmm. They hate young unless they can twist them to use them for their benefit.
Yep.
You've noticed anything, and you know me, if you watch my page, I've shifted from being so vocal on it, but I have watched how Black people and our issues have become weaponized, especially in the political arena. Yeah. But if it's one thing I can say, we need to start helping to shape and mold. When I say we, Black people, not a party,
right?
Black people, we need to start shifting. We need to start holding, the quote unquote elders of the community accountable. You can't take the mantle of elder if you are not bestowing wisdom and knowledge to the next generation. You perfect. Okay. Your trees are not bearing any fruit that's useful to us. I just gotta say that. You just there.
Yeah.
Right? You're barren to us.
Yes.
It's going to be those younger individuals, those hungry individuals, those young lions that got the fight in them, that's going to be able to go into these arenas and attack.
Yeah.
If one thing I've learned politically, especially here in South Carolina, you got to have some dogs out there. You got to have some people. That's why I go hard. Why? Because I don't see nobody else with that dog in them, especially when it comes to education.
Yep.
You got people that sit there and let somebody tell them something, and because it sounds good, they go with it.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have some dogs that's ready to get in there and fight.
Yep.
And be ready to not only fight, but also bring others with them.
Definitely. And that's one of the things I've learned on my journey too, is that I don't have to personally study every single thing to try to be the expert on every single topic. Let's leverage each other's expertise. And like you said, we need to build and bridge the gap between ourselves. If AJ is that person who has the dog in him for education, Candace is that person who has the dog in her for when it comes to Black businesses, or whatever it is in our circles, let's leverage that and build upon that, instead of like everybody trying to reinvent the wheel, or just divisively, just not even trying to, connect yourself to somebody who knows, like we talked about earlier. You're not connecting yourself to the people that do know, and we're going at it all different ways. And it's just like, divide and conquer.
What happens, in my opinion, in the Black community, because such a number has been done on our collective and individual self-esteem. We kind of have that pick me mentality.
Yeah.
So what winds up happening, you may have a talented young Black person who was not even appreciated within their own community, right? So they grow up kind of Killmonger from Black Panther. Use that. So he grew up, he felt shunned by his people. He didn't even know, and then he grew up with anger and animosity and went to the side where, he was destroying his own, as he said. I don't know if people picked up on that. He was destroying his own in an effort to get where he ultimately felt like he should have been.
Wow.
So we have a lot of that in our community. We talk a good game as Black people about what we want and how we need to unify, whatever, but we don't follow through.
Yep.
We don't follow through. We make unification, we make supporting Blackness a fad. It's a trend. Long as it's trending on social media, long as there's some stimulus tied to it, long as we can seem like we're getting some clout or whatever, we do that.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you start talking about how we can move forward, the first thing many of us have to do is take our egos and move them out the way.
That's right.
So, like you said, I may be the person, the dog in education. You may be the person in business. And we have to be comfortable to say, it doesn't mean that I can't speak on issues of business, but it means that if I know that you are that person and you studied and you shared, and then I need to lift you up and make it so people know, all right, Candace is that person. People don't know this. On my social media, I share pretty much everybody's thing that I can that I think is of benefit.
Yes.
To a lot of times I share people's stuff that I've never met in real life. But if I feel like it's a benefit and it's social media, I want people to see. Why? Because we don't do that.
Yes.
There are some of us that will not share or do anything unless it glorifies us. We always want the attention to be on us. And there are people who see that.
Yep.
And they think, that's the way to be. So if we're not willing to even share the spotlight, how can we be expected to share anything else?
Wow. Man, my brother, this has been powerful. And I'm so glad that you were available and that you came on and you shared your knowledge. And I know that this won't be the last time because it's just getting started.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. And we will be watching. When the video's over, go to the post and make sure you share the link to your Facebook page. Do you have the Facebook page already for Low Country?
Yes, we do.
So yeah, make sure you add that link into the comments so people can follow you and know what's going on and be informed and be engaged with what's happening out there in the education arena.
All right. And listen, as always, sis, thank you so much for what you do, for your support of not just Black businesses, but Black culture, Black people. You're always on that grind, always doing everything to uplift us, support us. I love that. I love you for that. And, again, it's all love over here for me.
Love you too, bro. And so now that you said that, I want to make sure that everybody knows on Saturday, October 24th, we will be having the African Consciousness Festival out here in Moncks Corner. It's going to start 2 to 6. Well, it's going to be from 2 to 6 p.m. Wear your mask. We'll have hand sanitizer. We'll have, wipes, everything. We'll have the hand washing stations. But it's about, we're not fearful. We all have to breathe some type of air. It's just that we have to take precautions. Right. And, we want to make sure that people come out, that we're spreading awareness about what needs to happen in election time. We're spreading awareness about celebrating who we are as African Americans. We're, just making sure that we're sharing knowledge and celebrating the culture. So we should have like the drums, African dance, and then just like, spiritual conversations about, because at the end of the day, at our core, we're very spiritual and intuitional people. So make sure that you follow the African Consciousness Coalition page on Facebook, and I'll be sure to add the flyer on how to register in the comments as well.
Thank you. Low Country Black Parents will definitely support you, as well as Community Solutions Consulting will definitely be supporting.
Awesome. Thank you, my brother.
All right. Thank you too, sis.
All right. It's your girl Candace signing off for South Carolina by Black Locally, and AJ Davis signing off for Low Country Black Parents
Association. Yep.
All right. All right. You guys enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next time.
SCBBL show. Rock, rock, rock on. Rock, 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 rock.